Do you think AI will benefit humans? If you're using it to improve yourself, if you're using it to build something that's valuable, like a business or a charity or helping people, then yes, absolutely, AI can benefit humanity. If you are using it to create deepfakes, fake pornography, and misinformation, then no, it's going to harm humanity. Good morning, everybody. This is AI with Kyle. I'm going to be running through the latest news and updates from the week. Of course, GPT-5 is still dominating the news. Elon Musk is not happy about that. He doesn't like to be somebody who's out of the news cycle for too long. So he started to kick up a fuss and have a tantrum over stuff that's related to OpenAI, which I'll talk about in a moment. I'm also going to be talking about potential Google Gemini 3 rumors. There's some movements going on, so we might be seeing Gemini 3.0 in the next couple of weeks. Could it be the GPT-5 killer? Who knows? I personally quite like GPT-5, but I also do love Gemini, and I use Gemini 2.5 a lot. Other things, HMRC are using artificial intelligence to spy on our social media posts in the UK, and they've just admitted to it. So that's going to be an interesting fallout from there. And then also just talking generally about GPT-5 and the rollout. That really is the big news this week and will continue to be. People are still very annoyed by the deprecation of 4.0 because a lot of people seem to have an extreme and emotional connection with 4.0. They loved that model, and it being suddenly taken away without any fanfare and basically murdered was very upsetting. OpenAI have been rolling back. They've released 4.0 as a legacy model. They've also introduced personalities into GPT-5. And one of the personalities in particular, let me find the name of it because I've forgotten it, is the supportive one. If you go into customize ChatGPT, you can choose the personality now. Listener. So the listener profile in ChatGPT 5 is thoughtful and supportive. So it's a little bit closer to the 4.0 that people know and love. So whilst people are coming into the live, good morning, everybody. While people are coming in, I'm going to start with the news, and then I'm going to switch over to the questions, and I'm here to answer anything you have to ask about both artificial intelligence and about business in general, whatever you're thinking this morning, this beautiful Tuesday morning. First up, Elon Musk. I don't think he's very happy that ChatGPT is dominating the news cycle, so he is having a little bit of a tantrum. There's no other way to put this, honestly. It's to do with the fact that when you go onto the Apple Store and you search for anything to do with AI, basically ChatGPT appears near the top. And he's upset because Grok is not there. And this upset has actually spilled over. And so he's gone from being upset about Grok not showing up in search results to X not showing up. And so he's now accusing Apple of basically suppressing his applications, Grok and X, and he is threatening to sue them. So it escalated extremely quickly from a couple of tweets where he was annoyed that he couldn't find his own app on the App Store to him threatening to sue OpenAI. It won't be the first time he's done it. So Elon Musk, he says he's going to sue Apple over the X and Grok apps ranking on the App Store. And he's calling it an antitrust violation, basically. So he's going for an antitrust suit. OpenAI's ChatGPT is ranked first on the Apple App Store and Grok is ranked fifth. Fifth is not bad. Considering it's new, considering the brand recognition of ChatGPT and the fact that ChatGPT has basically become the Google of AI, it is the term that we use. We don't talk about search engines anymore. We say, Google it. ChatGPT has gained that kind of reputation as well and that brand recognition. So the fact that Grok is still fifth, that's not bad, but it's not good enough apparently. So in a series of tweets late on Monday night, maybe after a whiskey or two, Musk said XAI will take legal action against Apple for what he says is a bias towards OpenAI on the App Store. Apple is behaving in a manner that makes it impossible for any AI company besides OpenAI to reach number one on the App Store, which is unequivocal antitrust violation. I don't know why that's antitrust. Okay, XAI will take immediate legal action. So he basically had a bit of a tantrum. The thing is, we've known about this for a while. Apple and OpenAI have a deal. And I'll pull up an article. This is an article from June 2024. So this is about a year, more than a year old. So they struck a deal last year, 2024. And the arrangement, according to a report from Bloomberg, Apple is not paying OpenAI, nor is OpenAI paying Apple. So this was to allow ChatGPT into the Apple ecosystem while Apple tried to work out what on earth they are doing with artificial intelligence, something that they still haven't quite got a handle on. as a stopgap, they put ChatGPT into Apple phones, and you can ask Siri. I need to be careful saying that word because it's going to trigger various devices, or not, because it's not very good. You could ask that word to talk to ChatGPT. So they added integration. It was clunky. It wasn't very useful. There's no real reason to use that instead of just opening up the ChatGPT app. But this was part of their deal to allow iPhones to have access to ChatGPT embedded natively into the phone by calling on the ChatGPT servers. So the deal for that was not money. There was no cash exchanged. Apple is not paying OpenAI, nor is OpenAI paying Apple. The current arrangement relies on Apple providing exposure to OpenAI's ChatGPT to millions of users who want to access the tool, a mutually beneficial agreement. So for a year, we've known that this deal has been in place where Apple would put ChatGPT onto their phones and presumably give it more visibility in the App Store to make sure people download it, etc. And in exchange, that meant ChatGPT got a larger install base. They have more people using their application. It was a win-win deal between these two companies. This, again, was a year ago. So Elon Musk has just, for whatever reason, he's suddenly sparked up about this, and he's upset that they're working together. I don't know why it's now. I can only assume somebody sent him a photo of the app charts, and he saw Grok in 5th place, and it made him angry, and he spiraled from there. But he's accusing them, are you playing politics? What gives? Inquiring minds want to know. It's turned into a conspiracy rather than what was a relatively open deal that was struck between Apple and OpenAI about a year ago. XAI and Apple did not respond to requests for comment from Business Insider. Here we go. Unfortunately, what choice do we have? This is Musk again. Apple didn't just put their thumb on the scale, they put their whole body on. And then Sam Altman snapped back with, this is a remarkable claim, given what I have heard alleged that Elon does to manipulate X to benefit himself and his own companies and harm his competitors and people he doesn't like. So this is a squabble that is going on Twitter at the moment. I would say it's not particularly important. I think Elon just wants to get back in the news cycle, and he's fed up about hearing about GPT-5 and OpenAI, even if a lot of the coverage of GPT-5 right now is negative. I think Elon likes to just be in the news. And was it? Yeah, 2 weeks ago, XAI and Grok were dominating the news with the release of Imagine, the release of Annie, their next not safe for work avatar, Grok 3, etc., etc. Grok 3? Grok 4. Yeah, so he wants the limelight back. It's quite interesting. You can watch him spiraling on Twitter, and now he's complaining that X is being suppressed on the App Store, etc., etc. There's a whole thread about when you search for X, there are adverts above it, and these are adverts for things like Facebook and Instagram. And he's accusing that this is not fair too, but that is just the advertising system inside of the App Store. So if he wants to appear at the top, he needs to pay for adverts, which I don't think he'll do. So yeah, that is the big billionaire squabbling again news. Whether it has any effect on us in our day-to-day, no, not really. But it's interesting to watch these billionaires get upset about these things sometimes. Sage of Aquarius, you said 4.0 is for the artists, and that's good to know. I had it set to Cynic. Yeah, so if you want to put your new version of GPT-5 into a more creative mode, change its personality. So there's a couple of things you can do. Let me just put it up on screen because it's handy. So you're going to go not into settings, but into customize ChatGPT. And then there's a few things that you can do in there. You could do this already. You could add custom instructions. You could give it a name, etc. Mine does not have a name. Mine is just ChatGPT and very boring. And you can tell it, what do you do? What personality should ChatGPT have? So these are groups of traits, and there are default, which is cheerful and adaptive, cynic, which is critical and sarcastic, which is not great if you want to do creative work because it's going to be shitty, basically, and that's no good for us. Robot is efficient and blunt. Listener is thoughtful and supportive, which is probably the closest to 4.0. Obviously, you'd have to test it and see what you think. And nerd is exploratory and enthusiastic. You can also add in specific traits. So the personalities from the drop-down are groups of traits that they've pre-made and stacked together. But you can also add individual traits as well. So they have some suggested ones like chatty, witty, straight shooting, encouraging, Gen Z, traditional, forward thinking, outside the box, humble, silly, etc. just spark ideas and you can click to add them, or you can just type in what traits you want specifically. So this is, I believe, in all versions of ChatGPT. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, if this is not in the free version, but I think it's in the free version too. What is not in the free version is the ability to roll back to the legacy model. So if you go into settings, there is now a switch, a toggle for show legacy models. When you toggle that on, if you're on a plus or a pro plan or team plan, you can now use the drop down in GPT-5, select legacy models and move it back into 4.0. And this is connected with the pushback that they've been having and people being extremely upset. I'll actually skip over to, they did an AMA, an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. They did it on Friday. So the launch was on Thursday, and then they immediately did an AMA. They generally do an AMA, but this one did feel more like a crisis meeting because a lot of people were very upset. Sam Altman, Yann Dubois, all of the main players, and a lot of the people who were on the presentation on Thursday hopped onto the AMA on Reddit to answer questions, including one that I found fascinating. I did a video the other day about this terrible chart that they did, absolutely terrible chart, which was, it looked like it being created by GPT-5 and it was rubbish. Although I actually asked GPT-5 to analyze the chart afterwards and it said, oh yeah, this is a bad chart. Here's how we do it better. So I don't know how they created this chart, but this came up in the AMA. And Sam Altman said, the numbers here were accurate, but we screwed up the bar charts in the live stream overnight. On another slide, we screwed up the numbers. The blog post and system cards were accurate, though. People were working late and very tired, and human error got in the way. A lot comes together for a live stream in the last hour. So I thought that was very honest, saying, yeah, we screwed up, basically. I would recommend having a look at this AMA, though, because you can find answers to a lot of your questions, and they have been sorted out by the moderators in the Reddit as well, so you can quickly find the questions and the answers. And it's worth checking that because we can get answers directly from the horse's mouth, basically. So that's on the ChatGPT Reddit, so r/ChatGPT, and I think it's pinned to the top, so it should be nice and easy to find, worth having a look at. Malcolm says, do you think AI will benefit humans? Big question. Yes, I do. I think it is already benefiting humans. So I do a lot of work with charities here in London, pro bono workshops, helping charities help other people, and AI has become a large part of that. So I think AI it's a GPT, a general purpose technology. It's very, unfortunately, it has the same acronym as GPT-5, but with a different meaning. AI is a general purpose technology in the same way that the computer is, or the internet, or electricity to a certain extent. It's a technology that allows us to build other technologies on top of it. So in and of itself, it has a limited functionality. So the internet itself has a limited functionality to move data back and forward between servers, client devices. That's fine. But on top of that's where it gets interesting. That's where we built websites and blogs and social media and Amazon and e-commerce, etc. So different technologies and companies and initiatives get built on top of the initial general purpose technology. And I see generative AI, something like ChatGPT, as a general purpose technology that we are now building on top of. And things that people build, they can build fantastic things that can benefit humanity, or they can build terrible things. The technology itself is relatively neutral. It's a platform on which we can experiment and build stuff. And so I work mainly with entrepreneurs. In my work stuff is with entrepreneurs, and it's helping a lot of individuals, solopreneurs, small teams, one person, two people teams. It's helping them to do a lot more work and to start successful businesses much easier, with much more speed and simplicity than just a couple of years ago when you had to do absolutely everything yourself. So if you're using it to improve yourself, if you're using it to build something that's valuable, like a business or a charity or helping people, then yes, absolutely, AI can benefit humanity. If you are using it to create deepfakes, fake pornography and misinformation, then no, it's going to harm humanity. But it's up to us what we do with it. And that's why I think it's important that good people get education in how to use this stuff. So people who are creating amazing things, we leverage them using artificial intelligence. So somebody who runs a charity helping 1,000 people, if we can give them AI tools that make them more efficient, allow them to raise more money, and accelerate them, and then they can help 10,000 people, that is a good thing. So yes, I think it can, but it can also harm, and it is up to us as humanity to work that out. Same with a lot of technologies, though, honestly. Most technologies, big technologies, have that dual edge, so they can help or they can harm, and it's up to us to work our way through that. And it's going to be messy, it always is, but we will probably get there. Good morning, Aussie. Personally, I'm having way more issues with GPT-5 than I ever did with GPT-4, no matter the prompt. So there's a big problem, and they are addressing this, is the fact that GPT-5 is a bunch of children under a trench coat trying to get into an adult film. It's not just one model. It's a number of little submodels inside GPT-5 that they've wrapped up in this unified model. The idea is great. The idea is that the GPT will be able to work out what type of task it is and then route you to the correct submodel. So there is GPT-5 high, GPT-5 medium, GPT-5 low, and then GPT-5 minimal, which is really bad. The problem is with routing. At the moment, the router, which sends you to the different models or submodels, is rubbish. And it seems at times to be fairly random. So the blueberry question comes up here. I did a video on this the other day because it annoys me so much that every time a new model comes out, people on LinkedIn in particular is guilty of this. Do that. Oh, how many R's are in blueberry, or how many B's in blueberry, or how many R's in raspberry, whatever it is. One, these are large language models. They're not computers. We have computers for that. They are not calculators. We have calculators for that. So it's using the wrong technology for the job. But that said, the higher end models can answer this problem, like how many R's are there in Raspberry. They can do this by calling on Python or going into a reasoning mode and working out another way to work it out. The problem is with GPT-5, unlike the previous model, you can't reliably put it into a certain mode. So if I wanted to ask a complicated question using the previous versions, I'd use O3 because it was the reasoning model, and it would be able to answer and give me a good answer. With GPT-5, it's going to route it for me, and it may give it to GPT-5 high, in which case I'll get a good answer. It may give it to GPT-5 minimal or low, in which case I'm going to get a terrible answer. And right now there's very little transparency. So OpenAI have addressed this, and they've said, oh, we are going to be looking at this. This is the main problem right now with GPT-5, is this routing module. But this is quite subtle. So most people will just use GPT-5, and because it is so variable and so random and so unpredictable, very rightly think this is terrible, because it is. This is a bad user experience for people. If they can fix this routing model and they can get us to the correct model or submodel all the time, fantastic. What I found is when I use GPT-5 high, so I'm using for coding in particular, it's great. It's a really good model. It's also scoring the highest on the benchmarks for like the intelligence indexes. It is a cutting edge model. It's probably the best model we have out there, but because we're not reliably given it, when we use GPT-5, we might be given medium, low, or minimal. It's really hard to see how it shines. So they've messed up. They really messed up with their routing module, basically. So I think that's one of the issues. And then the other issue is the lack of agreeableness. So 4.0 was very agreeable and very supportive, and it helped people. And that was really good for certain use cases like coaching or AI therapy or having a companion. 4.0 was much better at those use cases. The people at OpenAI have basically just, they've discounted those uses, and they think that we all want to use it for technical writing and work and coding, etc. And I think this was particularly prevalent, or this was very recognizable when Sam Altman put out a statement. And he said, oh, we underestimated the type of workflows people would be using it for. Talking to 4.0 as a friend or a companion is not a workflow. That is a relationship that people have with their AI. And I don't think the engineers at OpenAI really realized how many people were using it in that way. They discounted it, and that's why they've got a backlash. So I think there's two big issues. There's one is the killing of 4.0 because they didn't realize people needed and wanted a supported companion, and two, the routing issue. So that when you are actually asking a coding question or a business question or a work-related question, sometimes you get a great answer, sometimes you won't, and it's out of our control, which is incredibly frustrating. These are the big two issues that they're facing this week. Whether or not they'll manage to pull back and get this back on track, I don't know. it's going to be a rough week for OpenAI, basically. High Fruit says, which mode are you using at the moment? I'm just using the default. Honestly, I'm primarily using GPT-5 via Cursor, so I'm using it to code at the moment. So it doesn't really matter which personality. Well, sorry, there is no personality. So that's the majority of my usage, and it's really good for that. When I use it in the application, I'm just using default. It's perfectly fine for me. I personally, and this is a personal preference thing, I like my artificial intelligences to be direct. I also like them to call me out if I'm saying something that is stupid. So for me, I didn't particularly like 4.0 because it would be like, yeah, that's great. And then I would change my mind and be like, oh yeah, that's great too. I don't like that. I prefer something that says, no, what are you talking about? Actually, you need to do it this way. So for me, GPT-5 is great, but I fully understand why for other people, it might not be. We all have different needs because we have different tasks and we're using the AIs for different things. So I think giving it personalities is a step in the right direction. However, most people won't know about how to swap personalities in the same way that most people before GPT-5 didn't know about the different models. Remember, there are 700 million users of ChatGPT. Very few of them will know about these additional details. You guys do because you're watching a live stream or you're watching social media about AI. Most of the people out there don't know this kind of stuff. So I think there's still going to be frustration out in the world moving forward. One good thing is it's getting people to try Claude. I've seen a lot of people saying, I'm using Claude now and it's much better. Yes, Claude is great. You should use Claude. So that's a happy shift at least. James Brown says, has it changed? I've been talking to Betty lately and she's not been the same. Yes, the new models rolled out last Friday. So we've shifted from the 4 series, so GPT-4, GPT-4o, and o3. They've got terrible names. I'm sorry about that. It's not my fault, but they do have terrible names. They've now shifted to GPT-5. So if you have noticed changes to Betty, that's why. If you are on a paying plan, so Plus or Pro, you can go into settings, turn on legacy models, and then change it back to 4.0. 4.0 used to be the default last week. Now it is in 5. So that should put Betty back to normal. That would probably explain it. If you're not paying, then I think you can still access the personalities. They're going to be in Customize, and there's going to be a drop down, and you can put it into listener mode, which will be closest to 4.0. Yeah, this is an ongoing saga. We'll see how it shakes out over the next week. But for now, those are the fixes. Why did I like 4.1 so much? Everyone talks about 4.0. 4.1 was good for coding. Yes. So 4.1 is still available. So in Cursor, I'm just checking here. Oh, is it? Where is it? Where's 4? It's disappeared. Okay. Oh, no, I found it. There we go. Okay. It's been hidden. So 4.0 is still available in something like Cursor. 4.1. God, the names are terrible. 4.1, the great thing about 4.1 is the context window. So 4.1 has a context window of, I think 1 million tokens, which is way more than even 5. So it's perfect for coding because that larger context window allows your coding tool to have more oversight and more to be able to see or understand and comprehend more of the files at the same time. Because a lot of the time with coding, vibe coding in particular, the problem that occurs is that you'll make a change in one place, or the AI will make a change in one place, but that will break stuff elsewhere. Having a larger context window at least allows it to kind of hold more of the program in its memory and to understand a bit more. So 4.1 was really good because it had a 1 million token context window. That's why Gemini is also one of the reasons why Gemini is also good, because Gemini 2.5 Pro has a 2 million context window, which is really cool. And it allows you to work on a problem for longer without running out of memory, without having to start a new chat as well. So 4.1 is fantastic for coding. Personally feel GPT-5 is nothing more than gating to reduce CPU and NG loads. Yeah, 100%. So that's why they have the multiple models. So the idea is pretty good. The idea is we're going to have a unified model so that our 700 million users who aren't advanced, who are beginners, they can just log on, they can just open up the app, and they don't need to worry about what model to use. They don't need to worry about anything like that. We're going to do all of that behind the scenes, basically. So the idea is good. It's also a good idea because it is more environmental. It uses less power. So let's say I do give it a very basic query and I ask, what's the capital of Paraguay, for example. I don't need the top end model, something like an O3, to work that out for me. I don't need it to go through all of those additional steps and chains of thought and therefore waste more electricity. Instead, we can have a stripped down model. Just give me the answer. Nice and easy. So that's the kind of idea here, is that you have 4 buckets. You have high, medium, low, and minimal. And depending on the nature of the query, the complexity of the query, it's going to be dumped into one of these 4 buckets. So it's, in theory, it's a really good idea because it does reduce the energy use of inference, of using artificial intelligence. And that helps reduce the cost for OpenAI, yes, but it also reduces the electricity usage. Good, we love that. The problem is the routing, is the fact that of those 4 buckets, right now, GPT-5 is rubbish at putting you in the right bucket. Obviously, if we want the best answer to our questions, we just want it to put us in the high bucket, to put us in the best model most of the time. But the problem with that is that's costing OpenAI the most to perform that. It's also slower. We're going to get a slower answer, et cetera, et cetera. So if they can nail routing, if they can get that to work, GPT-5 will be great. And I think this will probably be where models in the future will go as we move forward. I think we'll look back at this time and think of it as really cute that we actually had a little selector that allowed us to select what model we wanted to use. I think that's going to feel a bit like floppy disks or like very early computers. I think later on we won't have to worry about this in the same way that when people use an iPad now, they're not thinking at all about the inner workings of a computer. Like, it's very different from using MS-DOS or Windows 3.1 or having to build your own PC, that kind of very gnarly early beginning of computing. I think that's where we are right now with ChatGPT, with generative AI, or modern generative AI, which is why we, as more advanced users, we're happy to change models and to tinker around and put system prompts and custom settings, etc. We're happy to do that because we're on the leading edge of what's happening right now. 10 years' time, no way. This will be iPads. This will be all encased, and the controls will be removed unless you're extremely advanced and you'll build your own systems, so that the majority, billions of people, can use this without having to think. That's where we are going. I think OpenAI have just pushed out the boat a little bit too early because they have not nailed the routing problem. So you get sent to the wrong model and you get a poor answer from GPT-5. Once they get that sorted, I believe all models from all different providers are going to be going in this way. They're giving you a unified experience, which means a unified user interface, a unified user experience. And that's going to be much better for the majority of their customers, not for you and me. We like to mess around with this stuff, but for the 700 million other people out there, it's going to be a much better experience. And that's ultimately where their customer base is, not for us, the early adopters. Cool. So the other piece of news, which I wanted to flag up, I haven't read it in full, so I'm going to quickly go through it. So this is of interest if you're in the UK. So HMRC is our, what do you call them? There are like our IRS, our tax collection agency. Yeah, we love them. We're big fans of the HMRC here. So the HMRC has admitted for the first time that it uses artificial intelligence to spy on taxpayers' social media posts. Okay, that's not very moderate language, using the word spy, but that's fine. So the tax authority examines workers' financial records, spending habits, and tax returns to look for evidence of cheating, as well as posts on the internet. Social media posts about a large purchase or expensive holiday could trigger a red flag if the user seems to be spending beyond their means. The spokesman insisted the tools are only developed for social media monitoring in criminal investigations with robust safeguards in place. It's understood this has been the case for a number of years, and that all cases of controversial technology by the tax officer were within the law. However, this is the big one, advances in AI are likely to raise concerns about whether HMRC could in the future deploy the technology more widely. Okay, so this is something they've been doing for a while, using algorithms. So it will be, we've had AI for years. We've had forms of artificial intelligence for basically since the beginning of computers. We've been trying to work this out. But decades ago, or the last couple of decades, especially in things like e-commerce, we've been using machine learning. So Amazon, for example, is built on AI. It's built on machine learning to work out what demand is for certain products and to set prices and for all of the logistics, where to move product, etc. globally. That's all built on machine learning, on artificial intelligence. That's just like a less sexy version of AI than what we have right now, which is generative AI, which again is built on machine learning, but that's a different thing. But what we have now is new and it's different, but we've had artificial intelligence for many years. We just had different forms of it. And as a terminology, AI is very slippery. So it's always evolving and changing. So because we've had machine learning, they've been doing these kind of things. They've been scanning social media for a while, apparently. But it sounds like there's a concern now. I'm not sure who from the MPs, that now we have AI. This becomes, sorry, I need to be precise. Now we have generative AI. Now we have things like ChatGPT. This could become a lot faster, a lot cheaper, and a lot more easy for HMRC or any tax authority around the globe to deploy. Basically, they could scrape social media, the social media of everybody in the country, and they can run it through, well, build a model out of it, and then basically query that model and work out who seems to be spending above their means. It's a huge job. I'm not sure if the HMRC has the power to do that or the technical know-how. But yeah, it's potentially something that could be done. So they have been using AI to spy, but they say it's only for criminal investigations or criminal investigation. That said, surely anyone who is going to be a very loose one, anyone who's like massively avoiding their tax, does that not become a criminal investigation and therefore allow them to use this more widely? I don't know. But I thought this was an interesting article. There's less substance to it than I thought. But this is from the Telegraph. Okay. So yeah, maybe that was not a particularly useful article, but I'm glad I read it. I should this because I don't read these things in advance, by the way. This is literally me going through the AI news with you guys at the same time. I'm late for the live. Have you noticed Claude getting dynamic memory? Is it? Oh, thank you, Code and Chaos. You've just given me something to talk about. Oh, okay. That is really cool. And I'm going to... So, Anthropic's Claude, my favorite AI. I'm allowed to have a favorite AI. Anthropic's Claude chatbot can now remember your past conversations. Thank you. This is one of the best things about ChatGPT, I find. The fact that it has a longer term memory where it can remember what's happened between chats. So useful. I think a lot of us underestimate it, but it's a killer application for an AI. One of the reasons is it creates lock-in. So right now with ChatGPT and GPT-5, lots of people are annoyed and they're like, I'm going to go and use Claude. They might go and use those things and realize, this AI doesn't actually know that much about me. And why am I having to explain myself all over again? And, oh, surely you know that I have diabetes or whatever it is. This is the kind of thing that ChatGPT remembers because it has this long-term memory. It's had it for, I want to say 6 months or so, which is a really cool use of artificial intelligence because it creates a moat. So that is a killer application if you are an AI provider, because the more I use ChatGPT, the better my ChatGPT becomes. And I'm really surprised that Anthropic had not implemented this because it's a relatively simple thing. It's basically taking notes of the conversation and then storing them in a version of a custom prompt or a system prompt. So it looks like on Monday, so yesterday, Anthropic released a hotly anticipated memory function for its Claude chatbot. Fantastic. Amazing. Okay, so Claude searches past chats to read and summarize them for the user, and then asks if they'd like to move on and keep working on the same project. Okay, so that's a bit different. So I need to test this because I've just heard about this, but the ChatGPT version is a bit more sophisticated in the sense that it will, as you're having chats with it, every once in a while you'll see a little thing said, oh, I'll remember that. I forget the exact wording they use, and that is saving it into some system instruction, a file basically, which is your memories. This looks like Claude is going back and searching past chats. That's less useful if it has to do it each time it's trying to remember something. It's going to depend on the implementation, so I'm going to have to go and try it out. But I'm surprised they're not just creating a mini database, even if it's just a text file where they dump all those memories into it. So the feature works across web, mobile, and desktop, and it can keep different projects and workspaces separate. Okay, cool. That's very useful. I started rolling out to Max, Team, and Enterprise subscription tiers today. Okay, so it's not going to be for the normal paid accounts yet, but it looks like they will do a waterfall, a tiered approach. So eventually everyone else will get it. Here we go. Here's an important caveat. This is what I was just saying. It is not a persistent memory feature of OpenAI's ChatGPT. Claude will only retrieve and reference your past chats when you ask it to. and it's not building a user profile. So I think that's a shame. I think that's a real shame. I think that the persistent memory in ChatGPT is a really cool feature. I understand why people might be upset about it from a privacy point of view, but it makes usage, it makes user experience much better. So Anthropic are always the ones who want to be on the kind of the moral and ethical side of AI development. So I'm sure that's why they're doing it. And they'll say, oh, we don't want to create a user profile because we don't want to scare our users and we don't collect too much information, etc. In this case, it does really make ChatGPT a lot more useful having a persistent memory. So Anthropic and OpenAI have been going head to head in the AI arms race for quite a while. I don't know about that. OpenAI dominating. In our small circle, Anthropic, yes, are a competitor, but globally and in terms of users, racing to roll out competing features and functionalities like voice mode, large context windows. I wish they would compete about that. And new subscription tiers, as they both raised ever-increasing funding amounts. Last week, OpenAI launched GPT-5, and Anthropic is currently looking to close a round that can value it as high as 170 billion. Yeah, memory functions are another way leading AI companies are looking to attract and keep users on one chatbot service, increasing stickiness and user engagement. This is it. It's 100% a killer application for making sure someone continues to use your AI. Because if I have a year's worth of persistent memory in ChatGPT and I go and use another AI, immediately, even if the models are just as good as each other, immediately I'm going to get a decreased user experience in the new AI because it doesn't have all that background on me. It doesn't know what business I run. It doesn't know where I live. It doesn't know my preferences. It doesn't know things that I now expect the AI to know because ChatGPT has made me used to that. So I'm surprised Anthropic are not doing that. I understand why. I think they often let their, it sounds weird, but the morality and ethics get in the way of their success as a business, which maybe they should. I just worry that's going to mean that they will get demolished by OpenAI, or more likely they're just going to get purchased by Amazon. I think that's the way it's going to head. And then Amazon will just strip out all of that ethical and moral good work and then just set the model to work on making as much money as humanly possible. I think that's the way it's going to go, unless Anthropic can push themselves into the market and become self-sustaining. But they're so far behind right now in terms of users, in terms of revenue, that I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. And I really wish they would. Anyway, poor Anthropic. Go and use Claude if you haven't used Claude. Claude is fantastic. It's a really good model. I use it as my main writing AI and for coding as well. But it's generally just a fantastic artificial intelligence. Thank you, Code and Chaos, for flagging it up. I did not know about that. So that's really good. I wish that they'd made it more persistent rather than it's searching. But still, that's something. Anthropic is too strict. Yeah, Lucian, I don't want them to be unethical. I just wish that they would relax a little bit and speed up so that they can stay competitive. But it's a really fine balance because they have positioned themselves as the ethical AI company, and I fully respect that. But it means that the speed of their development and the speed of releasing features like persistent memory, for example, it cannot compete with OpenAI. Whereas OpenAI don't have as many qualms, let's put it that way. Grok don't have as many qualms, so they're just pushing. And that allows them to move at speed and to release features like every week, basically, that brings the public on board. It builds a larger user base. It builds up their revenue, starts to get them to profitability, and it will allow them to sustain over the next decades. Whereas Anthropic, because they're slowly plotting their way forward, ethically, morally, fantastic, they're not moving at the speed or getting the momentum required to get in enough cash to make their longer journey sustainable. So I think in the next couple of years, they'll just get snatched up by Amazon, which, is not a fully ethical and moral company. Maybe I'm just being cynical. Maybe they'll be fine. I hope they are. I really like them. Both them and Google have announced a slow trickle of new features in the next few weeks. Yeah, the rumors of Gemini Pro. I will switch over to the rumors Gemini Pro because they're really fun. So before the GPT-5 announcement, Sam Altman put out this stupid image. I don't know why he did it. He put out this image of the Death Star looming over a planet. I'm sure you'd recognize the image immediately from Star Wars, although it might have been AI generated. I'm not sure, but it's the Death Star coming over the planet. presumably he was trying to say they have a new super weapon, GPT-5, that is a destroyer of worlds. It's going to demolish every other competitor. That has not turned out to be the case, so it is a stupid thing to do. Also, positioning yourself as the Galactic Empire is a weird choice, Sam. Why do you want to be the baddies? A very strange choice. So I don't know why he put that out. And then this was yesterday, a guy called Patrick Lober, he works at Google DeepMind, so he's in the Google AI division, or one of the AI divisions. He posted a tweet of exact image, but it had 4 X-Wing fighters, a squadron of X-Wing fighters honing in on the Death Star. So famously in Star Wars, the Death Star has a weak point. It has a little tube that you can shoot a rocket down and the whole thing explodes, which is again, Sam Altman, I don't know why you chose the Death Star as a metaphor for ChatGPT. I guess the little tube that blows everything up in the case of GPT-5 is the routing system, which is a bit rubbish and has caused so much chaos this week. But yeah, Google basically posted this image, or guy at Google, of these X-Wing fighters on their way to attack the Death Star, which has led to speculation. Oh, here we go. Here comes a new Google model and they're ready to fight back. It has also, interestingly, put OpenAI in the role of the Galactic Empire, the big baddies, and Google as the scrappy band of rebel fighters, which is bizarre because Google is not exactly a tiny, scrappy company. But yeah, this is where we are right now. So a couple of things were noticed from this. In the bottom right of the image, there is a little tag that says AI. That was not in the original Sam Altman image that he put out. This has suggested to people that this image that he's created of the X-Wings attacking the Death Star was created by Gemini's new image creator. Or whatever, it might not be Gemini, it's some kind of Google product that creates images, which would be pretty wild because Disney are currently suing Midjourney for the use of copywritten images. So obviously Star Wars is now owned by Disney, so this would be a messy thing to do, to show, oh look, our image generator can do X-Wings and it can do the Death Star, it can do Disney properties. I'd love to see Disney and Google get into a lawsuit. It'd be extremely messy. Two very large companies. So this is one of the suppositions, like, okay, because it has this little AI tag in the bottom, is this coming from the new Gemini image generator? We don't know. That's speculation. And then the same day, somebody has potentially, this is all speculative, but they have leaked the code or the beginning of Gemini Beta 3.0 Pro. They found it on GitHub. There is a copy of the commit. Let's see if it's still alive. It is still live. So this commit was apparently, how did you find it? Going through the Gemini code base and PR. So apparently he found it, a mention of Gemini 3, Gemini Beta 3.0 Pro. This is speculative. Of course, we don't know what it really means. Interestingly, though, Logan Kilpatrick did comment on it, saying, I don't know where these commits come from, but that's not how we name Gemini models. The fact that Logan, who is lead product for Google AI Studio and Gemini, came forward to actually say anything at all is interesting. So maybe, potentially, we are going to be seeing a new Gemini model in the next couple of weeks. It would be an amazing time for them to drop it. So just after OpenAI fumble with GPT-5, for Google to come crashing in with something that is potentially a GPT-5 beta would be a really good way to get some brownie points and to pull people away from ChatGPT. I don't know what their timelines are. I don't know if they're ready to release, but if they are, or if they're even close, it might be worth them sprinting to that launch just to take advantage of the fact that right now there's a lot of very unhappy people with GPT-5, because Gemini is a great model. Gemini 2.5 Pro in particular, fantastic for coding. I know very few, if not zero people who use Gemini on a regular basis for normal AI tasks, though. People use it for coding inside Cursor, and they use NotebookLM, which is really cool, and you should check it out. If you've not used NotebookLM, it's very cool, and it's built off the back of Gemini. It's free to use. So with NotebookLM, you can create a notebook of a YouTube video, for example. So you can plug in a YouTube video, it will pull the transcript from it, and it will create a study plan. So here's one that I created earlier. So You can pull in information from blog articles, from YouTube, from books. I think you can upload books. Can you upload books? You can copy and paste, copy text in. Yes, PDFs. So you can upload PDFs, text, markdown, audio. So you can give it audiobooks, etc. You can give it lecture notes, and it transcribes, it combines all that information, and then it creates like this like mini source of knowledge for you. And then off the back of that, you can create audio overviews, which is basically a two-person podcast where they talk about the topic. So if you like to listen as your learning modality, really cool. It can now create video overviews. That's new. That they added a week or two ago. And I've created one. I created one the other day. It basically creates a little slideshow.
Then we'll zero in on the bottleneck that it
They're
created.
very, very, very cool. So it
we have today
a presentation for you.
Hey,
I'm surprised more people
uses
are
something
these
called
just making.
So what was the
YouTube
big
videos of them.
idea? What made the
Should probably do that. You can also make mind maps. It can make reports. It can, what else? So the reports are a briefing document, a study guide, an FAQ, and a timeline. So it can produce all of these kind of learning materials for you. But very few people know about NotebookLM and they're sleeping on it. But this is based off Gemini. And one of the great things about Gemini, and the reason it can do this so well, is because Gemini has a gigantic context window. So the base Gemini model is 1 million tokens, and Gemini 2 Pro is 2 million tokens. What this means is you can just put a lot of information in. I'm just trying to think. Let me find out how many. I'm going to ask ChatGPT. 2 million tokens is roughly how many words, how many books. So 2 million tokens is around 1.5 million words. An average novel length is about 100,000 words. So it's about 15 novels worth is 2 million tokens. So you can throw a lot of information at Gemini and it's able to deal with it all. And in NotebookLM in particular, it can then take all that information and create podcasts, create video overviews, create mind maps, reports, etc., etc. So if you're studying either officially at school or if it's just something you want to learn about, NotebookLM is amazing. But so I come back to Gemini. I know very few people who actually use Gemini as their go-to model, the one that they go and ask questions. So I think Google has a long way to go. They are embedding Gemini into really cool products. So Notebook, their AI overviews at the top of Google, that's probably their largest use with mixed success. But maybe if they can get Gemini 3 out during this period where people are really annoyed with GPT-5, maybe they can make Gemini an actual thing that we install on our phone and we actually talk to, which would be quite a coup for them. But we shall see. I think that was everything, pretty much everything today. So thank you, Code and Chaos. Both them and Google announced a slow trickle of new features in the next few weeks. Yeah, it never stops. This is why I can do this show every day, because there's always something new. Yeah, and it's just a fire hose of information. And I do this for work. This is part of the work that I do. I need to keep up to date so I can give workshops, so I can teach people about this. But for people who are trying to work and bring up kids or run a business, there's too much information, far too much information. Yes, there is a Gemini app for phone, Davey says. Yes, there 100% is. I just don't know of anyone who uses Gemini as their daily artificial intelligence. So most people use ChatGPT. Some people, mainly Elon Musk fans, use Grok and they swear by it and they refuse to hear any talk of any other app. And then others use Claude. They tend to be the big ones. I very rarely hear of people who use Gemini as their kind of daily carry AI, but it is really good. But for some reason, Google haven't managed to break into that consumer market in the same way that OpenAI has. I don't think I even have the app on my phone. That's terrible, isn't it? Oh, which model do you suggest if you only want one subscription? Oh, it depends what you're doing. Really depends on what you're doing. If you are coding, and if you're doing that for a living, or if you're building products, then I would actually recommend, and it's a lot, but the $200 a month Claude subscription. I know that's a lot of money, but Claude Code is superb. If you are not coding and you need a general use writing AI, I'd probably recommend Claude. That's the one that I use for most of my writing. If you need an AI for general use, just kind of a general assistant for the whole of your life, I'd go with ChatGPT for the reason that it has that persistent memory. The model may or may not be as good as Claude, depending on what you're using it for, but that persistent memory and the fact that it knows everything about you and is able to change its outputs and its responses to you based on that persistent memory, that is a game changer because it knows everything about your life. So as a general assistant, definitely ChatGPT. What other ones? I wouldn't personally pay for Grok if you were just using it as an AI. I have access because I have X Premium, X Pro, whatever it's called. So I happen to have access to Grok. It's fine. It's whatever. It's not as good as the other models. That's the only problem. So I don't see any particular reason to use that unless you need real-time access to tweets and news on Twitter. It's good for that, but that's potentially the only potential use. But again, Stefan, it's going to depend on what you want to use it for, but it's probably going to be Claude or ChatGPT. Mark and Simon, do you think they might roll it back or bring the personal element back in? I assume this is for GPT-5. They have rolled it back. So if you are on a Pro or a Plus plan, you can now access the legacy models. You go into settings, legacy models, you toggle that on, and then from the drop down on the main chat, you can now select 4.0. So there is a rollback. I don't know if that's going to be a wider rollback. It is against their general mission, which is moving in the direction of a unified model. I think what they'll do is they'll have this rollback to placate a lot of the power users who wanted to use 4.0. And at the same time, they're going to work out that routing problem so that GPT-5 actually becomes more useful and it stops giving you entirely random answers. I think that's probably their plan. We'll find out. Whatever they'll do, they'll probably do it this week, though, because they're in full damage control mode right now. Oh, Pekka Fanny, that's a really good suggestion. So Stefan asked which paid model. If you pay for Perplexity Pro, you get access to all of the models. Let me check. So Perplexity Pro will give you access to GPT-5, Claude 4.0 Sonnet, or Claude 4.1 Opus for Max users, Grok 4, O3. Yeah, it will give you access to all of the other models. What it does not give you access to are the additional tools and features around those models. So, for example, you don't get advanced voice chat, which comes in ChatGPT. You don't get projects from ChatGPT and Claude. What you do get, though, are access to these models directly. So basically, it's an API connection that Perplexity are giving you a front end to. So you can use Perplexity to access all of the models. You also get Gemini 2.5 Pro. So yeah, check out Perplexity Pro because that allows you to get access to all of the premium models, but for one subscription. How much is it? Oops. So that's Enterprise Pro. It's very hard to find the actual price. Perplexity. I'll be honest, I haven't used Perplexity for a while because all the other models added search and research. Perplexity pricing, $20 a month. Okay, so $20 a month or $200 a year for an individual license. So that might be worth looking into, but do be aware that you lose access to the specific tools that are connected to chatbots like ChatGPT. You've just got access to the models, the underlying models themselves via the Perplexity interface. But if that's all you need, that's going to be a really good shout. Thank you for that. I've totally forgotten about Perplexity Pro. So thank you. What can you use the agent mode on ChatGPT 5 for? So agent mode is really useful if you have, I've mainly used it for research. So for example, yesterday I've created a new tool which helps people to work out what business they could start with artificial intelligence. So it's a quiz, it's about 10 questions or so. And you go through the quiz and then it gives you 3 potential businesses that you can start using AI. Nice little tool, really cool. So I want to start to run adverts to that. I want to run adverts on Instagram and Facebook. So in order to do that, what I did was I set up ChatGPT agent and I said, hey, I want you to go and do this quiz. I want you to go and do it as a user and run the quiz a few times, get a bunch of different answers. And then once you understand how the quiz works, what the outcomes are, what the results are, etc., I want you to then work backwards and think about what type of adverts, what type of creative I could make for Instagram and for Facebook, which would help to drive people to this tool. So this worked with the agent because the agent was able to literally go to the tool I've created and click through. Like the agent takes over a mouse basically, and it's clicking and it's answering questions and it's acting as a person. It gets the final answer. It's okay, cool. And then I'll do it again, click, click. So in this particular case, I needed it to interact with a piece of software in order to learn about that piece of software so that it could then write adverts for me. That's a really useful use of agents. Agents are great when you need it to go and do something elsewhere as a general principle. If you need it to go and click around, like if you have a website, for example, you could have it go there and analyze it from an SEO point of view, or ask it to pretend to be a potential customer and to go and look around the website and find places where a potential customer might get confused, for example. These are uses where it's almost like you're asking a friend or an assistant to go off and do a task for you, knowing that they're going to have to search around the internet, they're going to have to go to different websites, etc. Those are perfect for agents. It sometimes collapses with things like, I gave it a task which was, hey, I want you to go and research some competitors on Instagram or similar accounts to my Instagram, work out what their best performing content is, and then help me write scripts based on that. It didn't work because Instagram is like a protected site, so it needed me to watch what it was doing. So some sites you can go to and it can just do it in the background and it doesn't care, and it will do everything autonomously for you. Other sites like Instagram, for whatever reason, you need to be there to watch what it's doing, which kind of destroys the purpose of an agent, because you have to have the tab open, you need to be paying attention. So what's the point? So I'd say just mess around with agent. You get a fair amount of, how many you get? You get 40 a month? Yeah, you get 40 uses a month on Pro Plus. Sorry, I didn't get unlimited on Pro. So just play around with it and you'll probably come up with some really useful uses of it, depending on your business and what you're trying to build. Cool. I have just reached 1 hour. Thank you. Somebody just sent me a galaxy, which was very exciting. I think it's exciting. I've seen people getting very excited about that on TikTok. So thank you for that. Oh, it's Mike. Hey, Mike. Awesome. I am going to finish up for the day. We will have, I'm certain, more GPT-5 news tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be some new twist in this bizarre story. I'm sure Elon Musk will also continue to attack OpenAI. So we're going to have more, ever more. Maybe we'll have a Gemini release. I doubt it'll be this week, but in the next few weeks, which will be very exciting. I'm going to go and test out the Claude memory mode. So thank you for that. I think that was Code and Chaos who told me about that. And have a look and see what's going on there. And I'll be able to report back a bit more about that tomorrow once I've given it a good try. Awesome. So as always, all of these lives are chopped up and put onto the YouTube channel. We create individual clips. So if you want to find a particular news story and you don't want to watch through the whole live, which I understand because it is an hour long, then you can find everything on YouTube. There's also a newsletter that comes out every day, which summarizes the previous day's live, as well as gives you links directly to the video as well. We are closing in on 3,000 subscribers at YouTube. It is a long and slow journey, but I've been told once we get to 10,000, it should speed up. But at this rate, it's going to take, I did a calculation and it was like a couple of years or something. It was a depressing calculation, but we will get there. We're not going to worry about that. We stick to the plan. So yeah, if you can subscribe on YouTube, that would help me. It would help me not go insane over the next year or so. And I'll be back tomorrow morning around 10 a.m. London time with more daily AI news and updates. Thank you so much, and I will see you tomorrow.